Workers, what's the wildest company policy hack you used to survive your job? I used to work at this absolutely soul-draining call center where PTO was earned by the minute, not the hour, the minute. That meant 60 minutes talking to angry customers. Circa 1 single minute of PTO. It was miserable. But the system had this quirk. If you clocked in early even by 1 minute, the software counted the whole hour as active work. So I started clocking in exactly 59 seconds before my shift, and for reasons unknown to man, the system credited me with a full extra hour every day. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but my supervisor checked my attendance for accuracy once and actually thanked me for showing initiative by starting early. That's when I realized I had found the glitch in the matrix. For 6 months straight, I clocked in 59 seconds early and racked up 30+ hours of PTO without ever doing extra work. I spent most of those hours taking long lunches, going home early, or spending entire Fridays sitting in the bathroom scrolling Reddit on company time. When they finally investigated, it was because someone noticed I was earning PTO faster than the department manager. I lied and said I had time blindness combined with enthusiasm. And the HR lady nodded like she deeply understood me. The fix came 2 weeks later. The company updated the system, so you didn't earn PTO until you'd worked for 59 minutes of the hour. They didn't backcharge me though. I basically got a free week's vacation for being mildly chaotic and extremely punctual by accident. My greatest achievement in corporate America remains convincing a billion-dollar company that my inability to judge time was a personality trait worth rewarding. I used to work at a hardware store where management cared more about shrink numbers than actual employee safety or workload. We had to do these nightly inventory counts on items like screws, bolts, washers, literal thousands of tiny metal pieces. Well, the policy said the nightly count could be done using visual approximation unless a discrepancy of more than 5% was identified. But there's the thing nobody said who had to identify the discrepancy. So guess who just didn't? I'd eyeball a bin of 4 or 0 screws and write, "Yep, that looks like $39.97. My coworker once handed me a whole tray of washers that had clearly been dumped on the floor earlier, and I wrote, "Counts consistent." My manager praised my efficiency and accuracy. I was a star. Then one day, corporate came in and noticed all our counts were perfect, like unnervingly perfect. They asked me how I achieved such uniform precision, and I panicked, like full fight or flight moment. So I just straight up lied and said, "God bless me with an eye for tiny things. Corporate bought it. They told me I should train other employees." The loophole died only when some new guy actually tried to do the counts correctly, freaked out and called corporate claiming we were doing witchcraft. They finally changed the rule to mandatory physical count. I quit the next week. My legacy lives on in the break room graffiti. 3997 never forget. I worked at a grocery store where the break room thermostat was locked in a big plastic cage because employees kept touching it. The company set it permanently to 62 degrees. 62. Antarctica vibes. Employees were eating soup while wearing winter coats. One day, I was messing around with my keys and realized that the plastic cage lock used the exact same key as the bathroom supply closet. No one had noticed because the locks weren't supposed to match. So I unlocked it, put the temp at a normal 72, locked it again. And everyone celebrated me like I was Prometheus bringing fire to humanity. But then I took it further. Every shift, I'd adjust it depending on who was working. Night crew, toasty warm. Morning crew, slightly chilly so they'd stay awake. Managers, Sahara desert. Let them sweat. This went on for months. People whispered about the thermostat phantom. Management kept sending emails saying, "The thermostat is not to be touched." And meanwhile, I was in the corner warming my hands like a medieval king near a fireplace. The hack finally died when corporate replaced the cage with a locked metal box and changed the thermostat to one that only responded to a magnetic keycard. The day they installed it, half the staff looked at me like we had just lost a war. One guy saluted me. Another said, "You warmed our hearts and the room." The shift supervisor still calls me the temperature anarchist. I worked at this warehouse where overtime required manager approval. The loophole? You only needed approval if you worked more than 30 minutes past your shift. The system didn't track start times, only end times. So I started clocking in 2 hours early every day, doing my usual tasks with zero supervision, and leaving right when my shift ended. My boss never noticed because the reports all looked totally normal. Employee worked 8 hours, no overtime flagged. Meanwhile, I was getting paid 10 hours every single day. At first, I thought I'd get caught. Then one day, my manager praised me for consistently being on time. The delusion was so strong, I realized I could keep doing this forever. So I did, for almost a year. Eventually, some new regional manager audited time logs and realized I had accumulated 600 unapproved hours. They called me into HR like they were about to discipline me. But guess what? The company policy explicitly said, if overtime is not flagged by the system, it is considered automatically approved. They literally couldn't punish me without breaking their own rule. So they just updated the system. I kept all the money. I bought a PlayStation, paid off my car, and treated myself to stupidly fancy ramen for weeks. Meanwhile, HR avoided eye contact with me like I had discovered fire. At my old hospital job, employees got a 30-minute unpaid lunch. But company policy also said, if an employee begins a meal break but is interrupted by a patient or staff request, the break must be paid. And the loophole was beautiful. We discovered that if you left your phone unmuted, any ping, update, or alert technically counted as an interruption. Even spam calls, even calendar reminders, even silent notifications caused by apps waking themselves up. So the entire nursing staff started taking lunch with their phones intentionally loud. Ping, paid break. Spam call, paid break. Doctor paging the wrong number, paid break. But it didn't stop there. People got creative. One nurse set hourly reminders on her smartwatch. Another installed a weather alert app for a different state. Someone downloaded 5 different meditation apps that all sent random breathe notifications. It was chaos. Delicious chaos. Administration eventually caught on when payroll skyrocketed and half the unit was suddenly being paid an extra 2.5 hours a week. They replaced the rule with something vague like, only patient-related interruptions qualify. Whatever. The spirit of rebellion lived on. To this day, whenever someone's phone buzzes in the break room, nurses still joke, paid lunch, baby. I used to work night shift security at this absolutely dead corporate office building, like cemetery after hours dead. My job was basically to walk around, flash a light at printers that hum too loud and pretend I was preventing crime, when in reality the only real threat was me falling asleep, standing up. The company policy manual was 147 pages of pure nonsense, and the only thing that mattered to upper management was that guards must remain alert at all times. They repeated that phrase so much during training, it felt like a cult chant. They even made us initial next to it. Twice. Now this place had one weird, very stupid rule buried deep in the handbook that I only found because I was bored enough to read the entire thing one night at 3 a.m. It said, employees may take restorative breaks in any designated wellness zone, and such breaks may be taken at any needed interval. I had absolutely no idea what a wellness zone was, because no one ever mentioned one, but I tracked it down through the building's ancient floor plans. Turns out the wellness zone was a meditation pod, like a full-on futuristic egg-shaped sleep capsule built in 2013 when the company was trying to promote mindfulness, then abandoned after the CEO read one article about meditation causing emotional laziness. The pod was on the 9th floor, hidden behind a storage closet and a plant that looked like it died during the Obama administration. It had a reclining chair, noise-canceling speakers, dimmable lights, and this is key a fully functioning door that closed. I sat down just to test it and immediately learned 2 things. 1, the chair was alarmingly comfortable, like dangerously so, and 2, there was no camera inside the pod, 0 nothing blind spot of the gods. I checked the handbook again. Restorative breaks weren't capped, no time limit, no restriction, no documentation needed. And as long as I checked in every hour on the security system's button press scan, the system didn't care where I was. The button I needed to press. Right outside the pod door, this became my life hack. I would do a sweep of the building in 10 minutes, shuffle my way to the pod set, an alarm on my phone for 48 minutes climb inside, and knock out like a tranquilized walrus. Every hour, I'd crawl out, hit the button, pretend to stretch like I'd been meditating, and climb right back in for 3 months. I was basically a professional sleeper paid $50 an hour, but then I got greedy. One night, I stayed in the pod for 2 cycles because I thought, hey, I'm practically a wellness expert at this point. I set 2 alarms, fell asleep instantly, and woke up 2 hours later to absolute chaos. My phone had died mid-sleep, the system had automatically flagged a missed hourly active alert, and dispatch had sent someone out to check. I opened the pod door groggy and drooling to find my supervisor standing there looking like he was staring at a crime scene. "What are you doing?" he asked. I panicked. My brain unhelpfully said, "Lie badly." So I said, "Yuhai was praying." He blinked inside an egg. At this point, the only thing worse than the lie was doubling down on it. So naturally, I doubled down. I told him that the pod enhanced my spiritual clarity and that the wellness clause allowed any restorative activity necessary to maintain alertness. I even added that the calming acoustics helped me stay emotionally centered during my shift. He stared at me so long, I thought I was about to witness my own firing in slow motion. Instead, he sighed and said, "Okay, but corporate is reviewing the footage tomorrow. They're going to see you entering this closet 2 hours ago." That's when I remembered there were no cameras inside the pod, but there were cameras pointed at the door leading to the storage closet. They saw me enter, but they never saw me exit. So from their perspective, I just disappeared off camera, like I'd walked into a portal to Narnia corporate, thought there was a glitch. They audited the entire floor. They asked IT to run diagnostics. They had maintenance rip up ceiling tiles looking for blind spots. They even suggested I had stepped into an unsecured stairwell and forgotten to check in, which somehow sounded way stupider than the truth. After 2 weeks of corporate confusion, I realized they had no clue about the pod. None. My supervisor privately pulled me aside and said, "Whatever you're doing, stop. They are convinced the building might be haunted." So I stopped, reluctantly. Sleep deprivation immediately kicked me in the face like a mule. But the pod, the glorious Loophole pod, they locked it. They put an actual padlock on it, and my personal wellness paradise became storage miscellaneous items. Corporate never found out what really happened. My supervisor never snitched. And to this day, the building's official incident report still lists the cause as unexplained employee location anomaly, which technically means I got caught sleeping on the job, but only because I slept so hard I broke company logic itself. Asian anomaly, which technically means I got caught sleeping on the job, but only because I slept so hard I broke company logic itself. I used to work at this grimy, understaffed 24-hour gas station where corporate pretended we were some shining beacon of round-the-clock convenience. But really, it was just me, a register older than the Cold War, and raccoons committing nightly petty crimes in the dumpster. The job was so boring between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. that I swear time physically stopped. I could hear the hum of the freezer like it was mocking me with the reminder that I had 6 hours left on shift. Now, here's the thing. Corporate had this insane rule buried in the handbook. Nobody noticed it because the book was like 140 pages long and written by somebody who did not speak human. But on page 97, in microscopic legalese under a subsection titled Personal Operational Assumptions, it said, "Employees may remain on the premises in a non-active state so long as operational awareness is maintained at all times." What the hell is a non-active state? No one knew, including HR, and that's what saved me. One night during inventory, I'm deliriously tired, and I jokingly say to my manager, "Under the rules, I could literally take a nap as long as I maintain operational awareness, whatever that means." He kind of shrugged and said, "Yeah, technically. Technically, I interpreted that like a biblical prophecy. The next night, I closed myself inside the CCTV blind spot, the supply closet between the drink fridges. I dragged in 2 crates, stacked them like a little bed, tucked myself between a pile of dusty plastic cups, and took the best 17-minute nap of my life. Woke up to the sound of the ice machine coughing like a dying dinosaur, walked out, checked the register, and kept working. No one knew. And then I did it again, and again, and again. Before I knew it, I had built an entire sleep schedule around micronaps. I looked like a Navy SEAL, but for laziness. Instead of national security, customers would walk in at 3:30 a.m., find the register unattended, call out, "Hello," and I'd appear from the employee door like a raccoon that had achieved sentience. This went on for 8 months. One night, corporate did a surprise audit and watched the cameras. They couldn't find me on half the footage because I was literally horizontal in the closet. They printed out the handbook rule and demanded I explain how my actions aligned with corporate compliance. So I sat there in the conference room, dark circles under my eyes, and quoted the rule, "I remained on the premises." I was in a non-active state, and I was fully operationally aware. The auditor blinked, blanked, looked like he wanted to die. He couldn't argue. Corporate had to rewrite the entire manual because of me. To this day, there's a line in the official handbook that says, "Employees may not sleep on the premises regardless of operational awareness." My legacy. I used to work at a warehouse where management treated overtime like the holy grail. They acted like asking for an extra hour was equivalent to requesting the CEO's firstborn child. But here's the catch. Corporate wrote our timekeeping system, and they accidentally created one of the greatest loopholes I've ever witnessed. I noticed the flaw while clocking out one night. The tablet froze, spun in circles, and then reset itself. When it came back on, it showed 0 hours for the entire week. My stomach dropped. I thought I'd lost everything I worked. But when payroll came around, I got paid for every hour, plus overtime, plus an extra hour they couldn't account for. Turns out if you clocked in during the 45 seconds while the system was rebooting, your hours duplicated, like a glitch in the Matrix. I tested it once more the following week, and boom, another free hour. I became a scientist of misuse. Every Friday, I'd casually linger around the tablet at closing time, pretending to check my text or tie my shoe, waiting for the reboot moment. It happened like clockwork. Every week, I'd get 1-3 bonus hours because the system kept stacking them. I didn't tell a soul, not even my closest coworker. This was the kind of power you kept to yourself. Then one day, a supervisor accused us of time theft because someone's timesheets weren't mathematically possible. They printed out a list of employees who needed to meet with management. I wasn't on the list. In fact, nobody on the list had figured out the glitch. Nobody except me. Management launched a full-scale investigation. They brought in IT. They interrogated staff. They sent a corporate memo that said, "Employees found manipulating the system will be terminated immediately." Meanwhile, I'm quietly buying myself noise-canceling headphones with my glitch money. Eventually, IT discovered the bug, but they concluded it was totally random and couldn't be replicated intentionally. I looked that IT guy dead in the face and nodded along sympathetically as he explained it. I rode that loophole for 11 months, collected enough random glitch pay to buy a used car, and when corporate finally fixed it, the system sent out a notification saying, "This patch resolves an exploit used internally to generate unauthorized overtime." That exploit me, just me. I worked at a daycare, one of those places where kids scream like boiling tea kettles and parents act like they're dropping off royalty. We had a rule that employees could take a therapeutic break whenever they felt overstimulated. It was originally meant for emergencies only, like a kid biting you or someone smearing pudding in your hair, which happened more than you'd think. But the rule didn't define how long a therapeutic break could last. Most people took 2 to 3 minutes. I took 45. Not intentionally. At first, I just needed air. A toddler had projectile vomited on my shoes and called me a mean broccoli. I stepped outside, sat down on the curb, stared at the sky, and just recalibrated my soul. When I came back in, the director said, "Oh, you're back early. You still have 30 minutes left for your break." I blinked. She blinked. We both realized what she just admitted. Apparently, she thought the breaks were hourly therapeutic windows, not breaks, windows. I abused that loophole like a villain in an origin story. Whenever a kid screamed too long, break. Whenever a parent lectured me about gluten, break. Whenever the smell of diapers became spiritually hazardous, break. At one point, I was taking 5 or 6 therapeutic breaks a day. I spent more time outside breathing the fresh air of freedom than in the chaos room. I read entire chapters of books. I played Wordle. I ordered lunch and picked it up mid-shift, all legally, finally. A coworker ratted me out because she thought I was getting too zen. The director called HR read the policy, and we all realized there was literally no limit. HR held a meeting to clarify that breaks could only be 5 minutes max. The entire staff looked at me like I had committed war crimes, but one brave soul whispered, "You're my hero."